The number one thing, if you can get this and you can nail it down very, very well, then you're gonna know how to buy good flips. Thanks for tuning in and watching the video today. I want to talk about one of the things that I think is the most important thing that can make or break a flip. For those who have watched our shows pretty consecutively, you know that I'm not a huge fan of flips. I think there's too many factors there that can end up going wrong, and I think there's a lot of calculations that, can end up being misleading. But the number one thing, if you can get this and you can nail it down very, very well, then you're gonna know how to buy good flips. So a lot of folks call it the ARV, the after repair value, and this is why I think it's so important. I'm gonna bring somebody on next week who does this, who does a lot of flips, and he's the main guy in charge of this for this company that's doing 3 or 4 flips a month, and we can go into a little more detail there. But long story short, I'm gonna make this video short, but very, very important. So if I'm looking at a property and I think it's worth $400,000 after it's fixed up, then that's what I'm doing all my calculations off of. I say, okay, well, it's worth $300,000. I think the after repair value after putting $50,000 into it is going to be $400,000. Then I make $50,000. First off, that's not the case because you have to pay, whether you're selling it, most likely you're going to be selling with a realtor, so you'll have your realtor fees, you'll have your closing costs that are paid for your title. Depending on how you structure it, you may have to pay capital gains taxes, or you might have to do a 1031 exchange to get them into right. Depending on how long you've had the flip, there's a million different factors that go into that. But again, going back to the after repair value, if you get that number wrong, then everything else is super messed up because folks are like, okay, well, I think it's going to be 400,000. If that number was actually 380,000 or 370,000, and then you were expecting your margins to be 50,000, right? And then you have to pay your employees and you have to do everything else you need to, then your margins become very, very slim. And a lot of times on flips, folks are investing with hard money, so they're borrowing that, which have much higher interest rates. Kind of a typical terms on those is they usually charge you about 2 points, which is 2% of whatever the loan amount is. And then they charge you 2 points for the origination. And then depending on the term, sometimes they charge you 12% after about 6 months. And that's 12% every month, which is very, very, very hefty. And really they end up winning when the longer you take, but you end up losing the longer you take. So it can get very steep the longer you hold on to those hard money loans. But again, going back to the ARV, if you're going and you have all your numbers set up that way, the longer you end up taking, because it's going to take longer because you're going to ask the real estate agent, hey, our ARV is at 400, so we need to sell it at 400. We might sell it at 395, da da da. So then they put it on the market too high. And what happens anytime that you put a home on the market too high is you don't get a lot of exposure. The best way, in my opinion, to sell a home is to find out what market value is and charge about $5,000 below. You'll create a bidding war, and then you'll end up having a bunch of good offers that you can pick from that have good terms, and you can move forward quickly on. That's usually the best way to get the most amount of money and the best offers is just doing a little bit below market. But again, if you're way above market, then your home is going to sit there for a while, and then it might sit there for 30 days, and then you start sweating and say, oh, that hard money is going to be due soon, or hey, I need to start paying these things out. I can't hold all this by myself. So you start lowering the price, and then you say, okay, cool. Honestly, now we're at market, which now I'm scared because we were $2,000 above market. And now the house has been on the market for 30 days, and people start thinking, okay, why has the house been on the market for so long? And then some folks will just discredit it off the bat and say, oh yeah, we already looked at that house, it's too expensive. Even though the house is dropped and it's about market now, they'll still have that preconceived notion there. And then if you don't get any bites then your house has now been on the market 45, 60 days. And then people really start thinking, hey, is there something wrong with it? And then you start sweating because those interest rates are getting really high and really scary. So you end up selling well below market, and then you get a kind of a bad offer, but you need to get off of it quickly, and then you end up selling at a loss. That, in my opinion, is one of the most common ways that folks lose money in flips, is because they got that number wrong. Everything else dominoed and ended up being a bad fit and a bad situation for everyone involved. And a lot of the contractors end up having to wait longer. So if you can nail down the ARV like super, super well, and then partner up with agents who are going to work well and know the market very well, then it becomes as simple and easy as a flip can be, which is, there's a little bit of irony there, because flips are never historically easy. But almost like anything else, if you have the right system, the right tools, the right people in the right places, then things can play out very well. But if you miss that one, then I mean, almost forget it immediately. It becomes very, very bad. And again, the thing that people need to realize is the benchmark isn't the purchase price of what you're buying it for. The benchmark is what market value is for it. So again, I use this when people are looking at homes and they're thinking, hey, where should we position our offer? The purchase price is X. And I say, honestly, the purchase price shouldn't matter that much. It's like if I'm buying a car, say the car is worth $10,000. I'd rather pay buyer A, who's selling it for $7,000, I'd rather pay him $1,000 more than what he's asking for and get it for $8,000 than buyer B, who's selling it for $13,000 and pay $2,000 less and get it for $11,000. Although you're like, hey, but on buyer A, I had to pay more than what he was asking for. Yes, but that was still $2,000 below market. On buyer B, although I paid $2,000 less than what he was asking, it was still $1,000 above market. So it's another little thing to consider as you're evaluating those properties, is what is the current value of the home, not what is it priced for, what is the value of the home, and then what is going to be the after repair value of it, assuming I do all these things there. Again, if you get that one thing wrong, then forget about it. It's going to be a bit of a mess. So if you're not super familiar with it, ask somebody who is. If you're looking for resources there, I'm happy to refer you to someone who could do a really good job and get you in the right place at the right time. But I hope this video has helped for any of my potential flippers out there. Please always keep that in mind, and then your transaction will be much happier. Thanks so much, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can send me a message on Instagram, follow our page on Facebook, comment in the comments. Whatever it is, we'll make sure we respond and get to you. Thanks so much.